The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the mahogany dining table as I sat among my family, feeling like an intruder in my own home. My mother's diamond necklace caught the light as she leaned forward, her lips curling into that familiar expression of disappointment. "Denise, when are you going to abandon this ridiculous tech fantasy?" Her words sliced through the polite dinner conversation like a knife through silk. Around us, Atlanta's elite continued their champagne-fueled chatter, oblivious to the public execution happening at our table. My father set down his wine glass with deliberate precision. "Your sister Tracy just closed another seven-figure real estate deal. That's what success looks like, not some app that hasn't earned a single dollar." Tracy's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Still living off our leftovers, Denise? How embarrassing." She twirled her gold bracelet, a trophy from her latest commission. "Maybe you should get a real job instead of playing entrepreneur." I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket but kept my expression neutral. 3 years of this. 3 years of being their punching bag, their cautionary tale, their family disappointment. They had no idea what was coming. "We're cutting you off," my mother announced, her voice carrying across nearby tables. "No more safety net. You need to learn what it means to actually earn something." The irony was exquisite. As I sat there in my simple jeans and sweater, surrounded by their designer clothes and inherited wealth, I knew something they didn't. Something that would shatter their perfect little world in exactly, I checked my watch, 7 minutes. What secret is Denise hiding that will change everything? The appetizers arrived as my phone vibrated again. I glanced at the screen under the table. Margaret Lee, Trust Fund Manager. My pulse remained steady as I read her message. "Approve monthly allowances for Edward, Nancy, and Tracy Foster. $20,000 each. Awaiting authorization." Across the room, I caught Shannon Reed's eye. My business partner and closest friend had been watching this dinner unfold with barely contained anticipation. She knew what tonight really meant. We'd planned for this moment during countless late nights in our startup office. "They have no idea," Shannon had told me yesterday. No idea at all. My father was still talking, his voice dripping with condescension. "It's time you stood on your own 2 feet, Denise. No more handouts. You need to understand what real work feels like." The hypocrisy was breathtaking. Everything he'd ever owned came from inherited wealth: the house, the cars, even the wine he was drinking. And for the past 3 years, every cent he'd spent had been authorized by me. Tracy leaned in, her perfume overwhelming. "Follow my example. Get your real estate license. Actually contribute to this family instead of embarrassing us with your startup delusions." The dining room doors opened, and Margaret Lee entered. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with the precision of an executioner's footsteps. She carried a leather folder, her expression professional but charged with purpose. Conversations around us began to fade. Guests turned, sensing something significant was about to happen. "Miss Foster," Margaret's clear voice cut through the room, "I need your authorization for the trust fund disbursements." My mother's champagne glass paused halfway to her lips. My father's confident smile faltered. Tracy's eyes darted between Margaret and me, confusion rippling across her perfectly made-up face. "This is ridiculous," my father laughed, but there was uncertainty in his voice. "Denise managing the trust? She can barely manage her own finances." Margaret didn't blink. She opened the folder and slid a document across the table. What will the document reveal about who really controls the family fortune? Margaret's finger tapped a highlighted section of the document. "Miss Denise Foster has been the sole trustee of the $20 million Foster Family Trust since the age of 25. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. "She manages all assets," Margaret continued, her voice unwavering. "The estate, the vehicles, and the monthly disbursements of $20,000 to each family member. No funds are released without her consent." The silence was absolute. I could hear my mother's bracelet jangling as her hand trembled. My father's face drained of color, his authority collapsing like a house of cards. Tracy's wine glass tilted dangerously in her fingers. I rose slowly from my chair, savoring this moment I'd waited 3 years to experience. "For the past 3 years," I said, my voice calm and clear, "every cent you've spent has passed through me. Your luxury cars, your endless vacations, Tracy's condo ventures, all of it required my approval. My mother's hand flew to her throat. This is impossible. How could we not know? Because you never bothered to read the trust documents grandmother left, I replied. You just assumed the money would always be there, that you were entitled to it. Tracy's face had gone from confident to ashen. You're lying. This is some kind of sick joke. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. Months of authorization requests, all approved by me. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the evidence of her own dependence. Every time you bragged about closing a deal, I said softly, you were spending money I gave you permission to access. Every time you mocked my startup, you were living off my generosity. My father tried to salvage his dignity. We don't need your charity. We have our own money, our own investments. Do you? I interrupted. Because according to Margaret's latest report, without the trust disbursements, you couldn't afford the property taxes on this mansion. You'd lose it within 3 months. The truth was a physical blow. My mother actually gasped. Shannon appeared at my side, her presence a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. Your investors are waiting for you, she said quietly, a subtle reminder of the real world I'd built outside this toxic family dynamic. I turned back to Margaret. I'll need a few minutes to review the authorization request. As she nodded and stepped away, I pulled out my phone again. Another message had arrived. This one from Paul Carter, the bank manager. But it was the email above it that made my blood run cold. From James Mitchell, venture capital subject, concerns about your startup's credibility. I opened it and read, we've received information from a family member suggesting your company is fraudulent. We're withdrawing our funding offer. My eyes snapped to Tracy. She'd gone pale, realizing what I was reading. You sabotaged me, I said, my voice deadly quiet. You told investors my company was a scam. How far did Tracy's betrayal go, and what will Denise do about it? Tracy's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The color had completely drained from her face. I have emails, I continued, holding up my phone. 3 different investors forwarded me your messages. You told them I was running a scam, that my technology didn't work, that I was just trying to steal family money. My mother's voice was shrill. Denise, she was just protecting our family's reputation. Protecting? I cut her off. She tried to destroy everything I built. She lied to people who were willing to invest in my vision. My father shifted uncomfortably. Tracy was concerned about the family name. You have to understand, if your startup failed publicly. So you knew, I said, the realization hitting me like ice water. You all knew she was sabotaging me, and you let her do it. The silence that followed was deafening. Tracy found her voice, panic making it shrill. I had to. Your app was going to embarrass us. Everyone in our social circle was asking about it, and I couldn't tell them my sister was wasting her life on some tech fantasy that would never work. Never work? Shannon stepped forward, her phone in hand. You mean the app that just got featured in Tech Atlanta magazine? The one that's being called the most promising health tech startup in the Southeast? She showed them her screen. The article headline read, Foster Health Technologies, Revolutionary AI Diagnostics Changing Patient Care. My mother's face went white. That's your company? The one you've been mocking for 3 years, I confirmed. The one Tracy told investors was fraudulent. The one that just secured partnerships with 5 major hospital systems. I turned to Margaret, who had been watching this unfold with professional composure. I've made my decision about the trust disbursements. The room fell silent. Every eye was on me. Freeze all monthly allowances, I said clearly. Edward, Nancy, and Tracy Foster, effective immediately. My mother's gasp was audible across the room. My father half rose from his chair. Tracy's phone slipped from her fingers and clattered onto her plate. You can't do this, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. I can, and I am, I replied. The trust was created by my grandmother to support family members who were building something meaningful. You've been using it to fund a lifestyle you didn't earn. Tracy's phone buzzed. She picked it up with shaking hands, and I watched her face crumble as she read her screen. My cards are declined, she whispered. All of them. The downtown condo deal. She looked up at me with wild eyes. The deposit was supposed to clear today. My clients are saying, her phone buzzed again. They're pulling out. They're all pulling out. My mother grabbed my father's arm. Edward, the mortgage payment on this house is paid from the trust. I finished for her. Along with the property taxes, the utilities, the staff salaries, all of it goes through me. Will Denise's family lose everything, or is there still a chance for redemption? My mother's voice cracked as she spoke. Denise, please, we're your family. You can't just abandon us. Abandon you? I felt something cold settle in my chest. Like you abandoned me every time I needed support. Every time I asked for advice or encouragement, and you gave me mockery instead? Tracy was frantically typing on her phone, probably trying to reach her business partners. My reputation is ruined. Do you understand what you've done? I'll never work in this city again. That's not my doing, I said. That's the consequence of your choices. You spread lies about my company. You tried to sabotage my dreams. Actions have consequences, Tracy. My father stood, trying to regain some semblance of authority. We can work this out. We're family. Families forgive each other. Do they? I looked at each of them in turn. When did you forgive me for choosing my own path? When did you forgive me for not becoming the daughter you wanted? You've spent 3 years punishing me for daring to dream differently. Shannon touched my arm gently. The car's waiting whenever you're ready. I nodded, then turned back to my family one last time. The $20 million in the trust is going to be reinvested entirely into my company. Not a single dollar will come to any of you. Ever. You'll regret this, my mother said, tears streaming down her face, though I couldn't tell if they were from grief or anger. You'll regret turning your back on your family. The only thing I regret, I said quietly, is believing for so long that your approval mattered more than my own dreams. I walked toward the exit, Shannon beside me. Behind us, I could hear Tracy's voice rising in panic as more messages flooded her phone. My father's attempts to call the bank. My mother's broken sobs. At the doorway, I paused and looked back one final time. They looked smaller somehow, diminished without the power they'd always assumed they had. You thought you could break me, I said, but I'm the one who's been holding you up this entire time, and now I'm done. The drive back to my office was silent. Shannon didn't push me to talk, understanding that I needed to process what had just happened. The city lights of Atlanta blurred past the window, each one a reminder of the world I was building outside my family's toxic bubble. You did the right thing, Shannon finally said as we pulled up to our building. I know, I replied, but it doesn't make it hurt less. She squeezed my hand. That's because you actually have a heart, unlike them. But Denise, you're free now. Really free. Your company isn't tied to their judgment anymore. You can build it into everything you've dreamed of. I looked up at the building that housed our startup. Lights still glowed in the windows where our small team was working late, believing in the vision we'd created together. Let's get back to work, I said, stepping out of the car. We have a company to build. 6 months later, how will their lives have changed? 6 months transformed everything. I stood in my new corner office, overlooking the Atlanta skyline that had once represented my family's world. Now it represented mine. The space buzzed with energy, developers collaborating, designers presenting mock-ups, the ping of notifications as our user base grew by thousands each day. Denise, you need to see this. Shannon rushed in, tablet in hand. We just hit 500,000 active users, and TechCrunch wants to feature us in their Startups to Watch series. I smiled, genuine and unreserved in a way I never could at those family dinners. Set up the interview and make sure they know this is about the technology, not the drama. Though there had been drama, the Atlanta social scene had buzzed with gossip about the Foster family's spectacular fall from grace. The mansion had been seized for unpaid taxes and sold at auction. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that my parents now lived in a modest apartment in the suburbs, far from the glittering world they'd once dominated. My father's investments had turned out to be nothing without the trust fund backing them. My mother's social calendar had emptied overnight when people realized she could no longer fund their charity galas. And Tracy's fall had been the most dramatic. Her real estate empire, built entirely on the credibility of family money, had collapsed within weeks. Clients fled, deals evaporated. The woman who'd once closed seven-figure contracts was now working as an office manager at a small property management firm, earning a fraction of her former income. She'd called me once, leaving a voicemail I never returned. "Denise, please, I'm sorry, I was wrong about everything. Can we talk?" But some betrayals cut too deep for simple apologies to heal. "Your 3 o'clock is here," my assistant announced. "The hospital network representatives." I straightened my blazer, designer now, purchased with money I'd earned myself, and prepared for the meeting. Our AI diagnostic tool was being implemented in 5 major hospital systems, potentially saving thousands of lives through earlier disease detection. This was what success felt like. Not approval from people who'd never believed in me, but the knowledge that I was making a real difference. After the meeting, I found Shannon on the balcony, looking out at the city. "Do you ever wonder if you should have given them another chance?" she asked. "No," I said without hesitation. They had 3 years of chances. They chose to mock me, sabotage me, and try to break me instead of supporting me. That was their choice. "Your mom called my office today," Shannon admitted. "She wanted me to convince you to help them." "And what did you tell her?" "That you were in a meeting with investors who actually believed in your vision." Shannon grinned. The irony seemed lost on her. But one unexpected visitor would soon force Denise to face her past. The knock on my office door came late on a Thursday evening. Most of the team had gone home, leaving just Shannon and me reviewing quarterly projections. When I called out, "Come in," I expected the cleaning crew. Instead, my grandmother walked in. I hadn't seen her since she'd passed away 2 years ago. No, wait. My heart raced as I realized this wasn't my grandmother. It was my mother, but she looked 20 years older, thin with gray showing in her hair that had always been professionally colored. Her clothes were from Target, not the boutiques she'd once frequented. "Mom," I said, the word feeling strange on my tongue. "I know I have no right to be here," she said, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "But I needed to see you, to tell you something." Shannon stood. "I'll give you privacy." "No," I said. "Stay. Whatever she has to say, you've earned the right to hear it." My mother's eyes welled with tears. "Your grandmother knew," she said. "She knew exactly what kind of people we were. That's why she made you the trustee." I felt my breath catch. "What?" "I found her letters last week while packing up storage. She wrote them to you, to be delivered when you turned 30. My mother pulled out a worn envelope. "But I thought you should have them now." I took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was my grandmother's elegant handwriting. "My dearest Denise, if you're reading this, you've discovered that I left the trust in your hands, not your parents'. I did this because I saw in you something they lost long ago, the courage to build something meaningful, regardless of what others think. Your parents were given everything. They never learned that true wealth comes from creating value, not inheriting it. I knew they would mock your dreams, discourage your ambitions, try to mold you into their image. But you, my darling girl, were always meant for more. Use the trust wisely. And remember, real family isn't about blood. It's about who stands beside you when the world tells you to give up." With all my love, grandmother tears blurred my vision. Shannon's hand found my shoulder, squeezing gently. My mother wiped her eyes. "She was right about everything. We tried to break you because your dreams made us confront how empty our lives were. You were building something real, and all we had was money we didn't earn and status we didn't deserve." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because you deserve to know that someone believed in you all along." She stood, moving toward the door. "I'm not asking for forgiveness or money. I just wanted you to have those letters, and to tell you that I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago, but I'm saying it now." She paused at the door. "Your father and I are getting divorced. Tracy's in therapy. We're all finally dealing with the people we became." She smiled sadly. "It took losing everything to find out who we really were, and who you always were." After she left, Shannon and I sat in silence. "Are you okay?" Shannon finally asked. "I am," I realized with some surprise. Her apology doesn't erase what they did, but it's not about them anymore. It never was. I looked around my office at the photos of our team celebrating milestones, the whiteboard covered in our next innovations, the wall where we'd mounted our first positive user review. This is what matters, I said. We built something that helps people. We created jobs. We proved that believing in yourself, even when everyone else doubts you, is the most powerful thing you can do. Shannon raised her coffee cup. To your grandmother, and to everyone who bets on themselves. I clinked my cup against hers. And to real family, the kind you choose. The city lights glittered below us as our phones buzzed with notifications. Another 1,000 users signed up. Another hospital system requesting a demo. Another investor wanting to talk. My family had tried to convince me I was powerless, that my dreams were foolish, that I needed their approval to succeed. But I'd learned the truth. The only approval I ever needed was my own. And that made all the difference. The end. Remember, never let anyone convince you that you're small. You have everything you need inside you to build something extraordinary,